Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is here. I'm joined this evening by Mersede. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Is my pronunciation okay?
Yes, it's perfect. And can I call you Aaron?
Indeed. Before I forget real quick, let me just show everyone Mercede's website, Photographic Ontologies. What's going on here?
This is just a compilation of my work throughout the years. I've done photography. I've traveled the world. I've focused on different kind of remote cultures, remote lands and stuff like that. So this is basically just like a curation of some of the stuff that I've seen and places I did. I focus mostly on people. So I do a lot of portraitures, candid stuff, but mostly for my travels. This website is not updated, but I promise to update that.
Okay. And you've also got your Instagram account here,
Yes.
which everyone should feel free to follow. Mersede on Instagram. Very, very cool. So there is so much we can and will talk about this evening. We're in no rush, folks. We are going to be taking our time this evening. This could be a 2 or 3 hour affair.
Perfect.
So where should we begin?
Where should we begin? There's so much. I want to, I guess, start by saying how I even found your channel, which is also very odd because obviously I've been out of Sea Org for 21 years, that we were just talking. I left in 2002 and I was always in the sidelines. I was always following, what's going on and stuff like that. But so my algorithms are filled with Scientology words and all the keywords. But how I found your channel is very, very odd because so I was a big fan of Key and Peele, and I was like going down the rabbit hole of watching every single skit they did. And suddenly this one pops up. I guess like my algorithm was like Scientology, Key and Peele, boom. And then there was Aaron's podcast, and I totally got hooked on it because another podcast that I really follow for the past many, many years is Joe Rogan. So yours and Joe Rogan have been in my ear while I'm like doing work, running errands, exercising. So, but your podcast kind of brought in a lot of things back for me. I've, a lot of memories, a lot of people that I'd, known, names that have been mentioned, stories, just, it was just flood of memories that just like kept coming back. And I felt I just needed to contribute to this ongoing story, with your channel or people coming in and, talking about their experiences. And, I think it's so valuable. It has been super powerful. So
that's awesome. I just know, so, personally, my Scientology experience was mostly as a Class 5 staff member, secondarily as a Sea Org member, both as a real Sea Org member, and then just as like an out-of-org trainee at Flag for so many years.
Oh, okay.
And, all the conversations that I see happening on YouTube from public and staff and Sea Org members and everything, it just seems like inevitably any Scientologist is going to be able to stumble upon YouTube and find someone they used to know, used to like, have a lot in common with, know that person's not some big bad SP or something like that. When you say you've been out of Scientology, the Sea Org for 21 years, does that mean you've been out of Scientology for that long?
Yes, correct. So when I left the Sea Org, we can go into how I even left the Sea Org, but when I left the Sea Org, most of my Sea Org was as an out-of-org trainee for New Era Publications in Los Angeles. So when I left the Sea Org, I technically left Scientology, and I stayed out of Scientology. When I left the Sea Org, I was able to find the internet because we weren't allowed to have any kind of email, or we were not allowed to be on the internet. So I left Scientology. I found the internet and I got online and I started Googling and searching on just what this thing is from the outside, because from the inside, as it's so different than what it is on the outside. So yes, to answer your question, I have been out of Scientology for 21 years, but it took many, many years for me to deprogram myself out of a lot of habits that had been engraved in me, you know. So it took many, many years to finally be free of it. And but yes, I've been following back in the days. I mean, in 2004, I started to do research. There was Operation Clambake, Xeno TV, Tori Magoo stuff, and some other people. Those are the only things that were online about Scientology. It wasn't that many people. Not that many people were out. Not that many podcasts were around. So I could just, you know, get anything I could get my hands on and just research. And, you know, I wanted to find other people that went through my experience. You know, it felt really lonely when coming out. I couldn't talk to anybody, you know.
I imagine. So you said most of your experience was as an out-of-work trainee in Los Angeles from New Era Publications, which is in Denmark, right?
Correct. Yes. So what happened was I wasn't, like I said, I was in Iran when I found out about Scientology. That's a whole nother story. But New Era Publications was the org that technically recruited me. So I got a visa for Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark, which was very odd for me to get at that time, because I was very young and had no ties to anything. So I was able to get that visa, go to Denmark. I did my EPF in Copenhagen, Denmark. And because of visa issues in Denmark, they couldn't just keep me in Denmark, as they couldn't just get me a resident permit suddenly in Denmark. They came up with this idea to send me for training, for magistrate training, which was a pilot program at that time. So it was a program that was being run in FLO, Flag Liaison Office, which is middle management in Los Angeles. And it was a program that everybody sent 2 people from their organization all over the world, all orgs, from FSO to CLOs to class 5 to everything, top down. Everybody sent 2 people to be magistrate, to train as magistrates, which is technically a super ethics officer that can do FBRD rundown, and, you know, and it's basically a scary post. You should be like scared of magistrate.
That's right, for sure. A super ethics officer.
Yes.
So was them sending you for magistrate training at the FLO primarily a function of them not being able to get you a visa to stay in Copenhagen?
I think so. Yes, I think so. I think that's what it was, because that was the issue. But it was pretty smart for them to do that. And I wanted to go because when I was a kid, I lived in the U.S. for a little while with my family. I grew up in the U.S. I was always had this nostalgia for the U.S. So when they told me, "Do you want to go for a training in L.A.?" I was like, hell yes, you know, absolutely. And my English was really good at that time. I could, you know, I was very articulate in reading and writing. So they're like, you know what, this is perfect. We'll just send you off to America to do this training. And this was a huge lineup. It was supposed to, you're technically in a like a best case scenario, finish it in a year or something. And but I don't think anybody ever finished that lineup. I don't know if you know that. I don't think anybody.
I know. Like, to finish all the auditing and the sec checking and the FPRD and everything. It's like when they send people for professor training, but there's no primary rundown, so nobody can really be a professor. Like it's almost as stupid as that.
Exactly.
And like 5 people understood what we just said. So
I know. I'm sorry. I'm using a lot of nomenclature, which some of them I've forgotten. Some of them has come back to me watching your channel. So.
How to speak, a few years ago, I used to do a series of videos on my channel, how to speak Scientologese. And it was, the idea was if non-Scientologists, people who have family members that are Scientologists, if they learn how to use the words correctly, they'll have more credibility with their Scientology family members. Anyway, I used to do it. I used to do it, but I stopped.
The amount of jargon, the amount of technical jargon that you have picked up in this whole ideology is just stunning. It's absolutely stunning. So, but yeah, that's why and how I got into Flag Liaison Office and got thrown into this program. And please stop me if I'm rambling. But so I went up all the way to, I finished class 4. I was on my internship, and they suddenly took me off of that and put me on another pilot program it was a kind of an offshoot of False Purpose Rundown. It was called Evil Purpose Rundown something. It was like another whole nother pilot program. They just yanked me off of class 4 and they put me on that. Which I don't know how. This was not off the bridge. This was just a pilot thing. And yeah, so I went through the lineup really quickly. I got to the internship and I was technically staff at the HGC and FLO. All I was doing was sec checking left and right. Everybody was just getting sec checked because everybody was in ethics. Everybody was in trouble left and right. Everybody was leaving the Sea Org. I started doing a lot of routing out of Sea Org sec checks. And that's how I started waking up a little bit.
Juicy.
Yes. So that's like a story of me gradually starting to doubt this and start to wake up was those sec checks. Yeah.
So if you're basically a staff auditor at the FLO, in the HGC, is that basically out of ITO?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Yes, because they were so understaffed in HGC at FLO. There was only 3 auditors they had. One was Karina Granzman, by the way. She was a class 5 auditor there.
Was she nice at least? Was she a nice person?
She was okay. I'm to be real honest. Yeah, no, she was all right. Her dad was nicer. I think Amir and Karina was nice too. But no, so they only had 3 auditors and they were class 5 auditors. And those are the auditors that could audit out int stuff, neurodynamics and other stuff. So all the out-of-work trainees, all the interns would get the burden of sec checking. So we were just being sec checkers. So we were technically used as staff instead of pushing us to complete our training so that we can go back to our orgs or whatever. We were just bogged down in HGC as staff and just performing these sec checks after sec checks after I can not even begin to tell you how many hours a week. It would sometimes exceed 60 hours a week that I was in the chair, they say, just performing these all kinds. And also when I got into the FBRD internship, which was evil purpose internship, a different course, which was same thing. I was doing that. Anyway, so, but yeah, I just want to say, if I don't know, one girl that really woke me up that I was auditing was Lizzie Cohey. I don't know if you know her or knew her.
How do you say the last name?
Cohey, Hohee. She used to be an able int. Her whole family was in Scientology. She was a ranch kid and she wanted to leave the Sea Org. And she wanted to leave the Sea Org not having anybody outside of this cult, and it takes a lot of guts to leave without like just going out there with not having anybody. When I left, I just went back to my home. I just went back to my family. It was very easy for me. But for some people like her and some other people I was routing, doing the sec checks to route out, they just had nowhere to, they just wanted to leave. They were done. They wanted to leave. So Lizzie was one of them. And her sec check really woke me up. The stuff that was coming out of that session really woke me up. I got in trouble for the stuff that got out of session as well as she.
You got in trouble for what?
So I got in trouble. She was basically claiming that she was getting sexually harassed by CEO of Able Int, and all those things were coming out in the sec check. And my first sec check, she spewed all of it out because it was basically asking you why you want to leave the Sea Org. Why do you want to leave? That's like that's how you start the sec check. And she spat it out, and it was really hard to listen to that. And I didn't have it recorded. It was it was the first session I was taking her in. I thought it was going to be in and out. I didn't think any of this was going to come out of the session. Sometimes we would not even record our sessions because there was a lack of VCR tapes, those big tapes, and we just sometimes didn't record the session. So the first session didn't get recorded, and she spat all of these stuff out. I wrote it down. I sent it to the senior CS. I got in trouble. I was sent to ethics for the, I was put on the cans and given an ethics interview about the credibility and if I'm making this up and if she's making this. So this was a whole thing. But in a nutshell, her story really, really woke me up. And I was like, wait, CEO of Able Int, I see him all the time at the dining room, like, being in middle management, you see all these CEOs and all these execs in the dining room. Like you just walk past them in the hallways, and you always look up to them, and they're OT8 and they're these amazing beings, and here I am hearing this horrific stories of how he was continuously harassing her in the Sea Org, to a point where she wanted to leave, like leave to go nowhere. She had a great aunt somewhere in the West Coast. I don't know if she's out there listening to this, but if you are, it's like really her story and the stuff that she was saying, like really made an impression on me.
Who was the CO Abel Lint at that time? Do you remember?
I do not remember his name, but I remember his face perfectly. And he did get into trouble. I mean, I saw him on the decks afterwards. I saw him in the galley washing dishes shortly after. So obviously he did he did get in trouble for whatever that came out of that sec check, but so did everybody. I was put on the meter, and I was asked to record all my sessions after that. And I was then sent to ethics for miscalling FNs left and right, miscalled FN, miscall a read, all that stuff. So I went to a lot of ethics. I went to ethics for that whole, auditing procedure for Lizzie multiple times.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what years were you at the FLO?
1998 until end of 2002. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you left the Sea Org almost exactly when I joined. I joined in August 2002 at ASHO at PAC. At
ASHO, okay. Yeah. Did you know somebody called Ania McQuelly?
No.
A girl. Okay, so she was at ASHO. She was a really great friend of mine. Sometimes I keep track of who has left, and I always Google her, and I always hope one day that she leaves. But then I found out that she's at Gold now, so she's not going anywhere. Yeah.
Did you know Lori Modris?
Oh, Lori Modris. Yes. That's so funny. I know the name.
Her daughter, Tracy Modris, I think I wasn't sure if she would still be in the Sea Org at that time, but Lori had been a good friend of mine. I didn't know a ton of FLO people. The only FLO people I knew were people who I knew because had been hourly trainees at Flag previously.
I see. Okay.
Was Max Minkoff or Silka at ITO at that time?
Silka from South Africa, right?
Silka Peens.
Silka Peens, yes. Oh, yes. She was there, and she was the HGC at. She was the head of HGC at one point, also. Yes, it's funny. You know her? Yeah, I know her very, very well.
I actually just saw her sister Anka downtown Clearwater like 3 days ago.
Oh, really? Is she out, or she's?
Anka's a public Scientologist, and her husband, like Emmanuel, I think his name is. Okay, so now you mentioned that you're from Iran, and there's probably only a handful of Iranian Scientologists.
Yeah.
One of them is Nazanin Boniadi, who was famously Tom Cruise's girlfriend in the first Girlfriend Search.
Yes.
You and I both know Coco and Fareed Tabibzadeh, who were Scientologists in the LA area. How did you end up getting into Scientology when there's no Scientology in Iran?
Yeah, I have to track back a little bit. So after we used to live in the US for a while, and I would see commercials of Dianetics sometimes on TV. Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard, the volcano, that commercial. So I had that word L. Ron Hubbard in my ear somehow. And then we went to Iran, and I met somebody. This is crazy. I met this public Scientologist in Iran from Toronto org. He was from Canada, but he's Iranian, and he was visiting Iran. And when I was younger, even up to today, I was always very much interested in esoteric knowledge, aliens and UFOs and crop circles and, metaphysics and, supernatural stuff. So that was my thing. And it still is, but that was more my thing back then. I was like really into ufology. And so I met this person at a party, and we started talking, and he was exactly into the same stuff. And then suddenly he brings up, he's like, there is a spiritual kind of an organization, there's a spiritual movement. And did you know that they kind of merge spirituality with extraterrestrial knowledge? And da 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 da, and and the aliens and intergalactic confederations and clearing on the planet and Sector 6. I think we're in Sector 6 or something.
He hit you with that stuff right off the bat?
Right off the bat, he hit me with that stuff. And dude, I was sold. I was like 20 years old. Like, I was going to art school. I was like, yeah, what is this? Tell me more. So anyway, I went down the rabbit hole with it. There wasn't that much internet at that time, so he used to give me a lot of free wins magazines, where you would see Scientology people with their uniforms, and I was absolutely freaking blown away. I was like, you know what? This is it. This is my destiny. This is exactly what I was looking for. I need to go there. I need to with these people. Like, I was so excited, and I made it happen. I made it in a very unlikely way. I made it happen. I wrote to them. I wrote a letter. Like a letter, and I mailed it with a stamp. And obviously, and I wrote my phone number, and they called me, and they recruited me. Anyway, so
who'd you send who did you send the letter to?
And New Era publication. I also sent a letter to Flag, and I also sent a letter to New Era. And one of the reasons I found New Era was because New Era and British Publications, for people out there, New Era Publications is the equivalent of British Publications, but for EU and the rest of the world. But they're kind of in between int management and middle management. They're in like somewhere in between in terms of echelon. So, the reason I found their number was because it was written in back of one of the Free Winds magazine.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So long story short, I joined the Sea Org because of Xenu. I joined Sea Org because of the aliens.
But the guy didn't tell you about Xenu, right?
He did not mention the word Xenu.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I did.
But the aliens, amazing.
Aliens.
All it took was aliens, and you were like, sign me up.
Sign me up. I want to do this. So, but then when I get to, Scientology, and I do my EPF, and the whole time I'm searching for all this alien knowledge, I'm like, where is it? Where is this? What was he talking about? Maybe he misunderstood something, or where is it? Maybe it's in the next level. Maybe it's the next level. So, I got to FLO, and I start my training, and I start to listen to State of the Man Congress tapes, where he, Hubbard talks about, his whole track recall. And then he starts talking about, different planets, and when he was fighting wars in planets and this and that. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is how I think that guy was making a mistake. I think it's just a matter of that in Scientology, we believe in past lives, and we believe that we used to be in other planets in our past lives. And I think he just misunderstood that, and he connected that to this whole alien story. And I kind of accepted. I was like, bummer, but I was still very much sold into it. I was a very dedicated Scientologist, Aaron. I went up the training side of the bridge really quickly. Actually, Flag wanted to keep me. FLO wanted to keep me. They wanted to make me an int readiness unit auditor because I was a pretty damn good sec checker. I was a really good sec checker. I was empathic. People would open up to me, and I was a good sec checker. I was a great FBRD auditor, and they wanted to keep me. And that's why they put me on that pilot program to make me an int readiness unit auditor. And they wanted to negotiate like a replacement for me with Denmark, with New Era. They weren't happy about it, but that's where that was around the time when I was having doubts to leave anyway. So, but yeah. But then coming out, and then suddenly when I came out, I found out, that whole alien story was correct after all. But we were so guarded and shielded from Xenu. I remember seeing somebody holding up a picket of Xenu and an alien face outside of HGB with in Hollywood Boulevard. And I mentioned this one time in session, and I got in trouble again. Like, I should go write my overs and withholds, and I couldn't understand, like, who's Xenu? Like, I couldn't put two and two together. So, but then coming out, then everything made sense to me. Did
you ever encounter some of the L. Ron Hubbard lectures? maybe it was in the R&D vols where he does talk about the fifth invader force, and there are non-confidential materials where he talks about that stuff.
Oh, really? No, I hadn't. Not at all. I read one time, after many years of being out of the Sea Org, I mustered up some guts to, because you know how they tell you that if you read the material before you're ready for it, you're going to activate an implant in your mind and you will get pneumonia and you will die, right? So so I believed that story, Aaron, for years. And then one night, I think it was in 2005, I poured myself some drink and I sat in front of the computer, you know what? I'm going to freaking read the OT levels and I'm just going to, just deal with the consequences. I'm going to read the clear cog and then I'm going to read the OT levels. It was available at that time. There was a OT couple that was out of the Sea Org at that time, and they had posted the whole bridge up in Operation Clambake website. So all of the OT levels was there from clear cog all the way up. So I read the clear cog. I was like, what? You don't have, that's it? You just don't have your reactive mind? Really? That's it? This is the cog? I'm sorry if I'm spoiler alert.
No. So let me tell you, does this match your recollection of the clear cog? I just realized I've been mocking up my own reactive mind all along, and I'm not doing it anymore.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I was like, is this a joke? And I could not believe it. I could not believe it. And then I started reading the OT levels, and then I got to the second wall of fire, which is OT3, which is the story of Xenu.
Well, the second wall of fire is OT5.
Oh, really? Okay, so the first wall of fire, then, yeah, right. So then I started reading, wait, clearing body thetan after body thetan, OT6 clearing body thetan, OT7 clearing body thetan. What? You're just exercising residual body thetans up. And I was devastated. I could not believe it. I was weeping. I was so sad and angry and relieved. Everything was going on at the same time.
So why were you so sad?
I was sad for myself. Right now, I don't see it like that anymore. I was sad that I wasted 4 years of my young years in Scientology, where I could have graduated my school on time and done partying and all the things that young people do. And I went and became a monk, technically wearing a uniform and living in a bunk bed with 6 other people and being like living a military lifestyle. So, which I still sometimes am very militant with time and stuff like that. It's all for my Scientology years. But so I was sad for that. I was sad for the people that are being conned into this. I was sad for all the money that, all the debts that people are going through for, pouring money into this, everything, but I was also relieved at the same time. I thought it was a tragedy. I thought it was a betrayal of trust, in a biggest way. Yeah, I'm getting a little emotional.
I'll tell you, when I read the clear cog and the OT levels, I mean, even the clear cog, it caused me to recontextualize everything I had heard about tabbing clear evidence in the folders and everything, because it all sounded so technical and so precise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, they were just tabbing places in the worksheets where it sounded like they said something similar to this.
Exactly.
And they were calling that evidence.
Exactly.
And I was like, this is such a stupid cognition. I never would have come up with it.
I know, like, who could have guessed? I thought the clear cog was like 2 pages long and all these, like, what? And a lot of people were going to do their clear rundown. What was it? Like,
CCRD.
CCRD, exactly. And I think it was because of these things that you had to mark down. And as a non-clear at that time, it was the senior CS that would mark those things down because he or she was the one that was clear. But yeah, I think the clear cog was the most shocking one for me. The absolute shocking one was the clear cog. But yeah, after that fear was gone, I started to really dig into, see, okay, who else is out? Who's out? So I was always keeping tab, even though I was out of Scientology. I didn't make it my brand. I didn't want to be associated with it. I was like, let me just live my life. But I kept track of who's out, who's in. And when Facebook started, I found a bunch of people. I think Facebook started in 2007. I found a bunch of Sea Org members that had left, but in good standing though. In good standing, but left. One of them was Jenny Burpee, which you said right?
I knew Jenny well.
Yeah, me too. I knew Jenny very well because she was also a magistrate trainee out of work training. I roommated with her a little bit during that time. So so when Jenny was, I saw Jenny out, David Lipchick, another person, even RTC people, and also Jenna Miscavige was out way before YouTube, and she was out like, I remember I saw her being out long time ago. But so I started contacting them because I felt very lonely in this Scientology experience. I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I couldn't even use the jargon. I couldn't even, people always said, tell me about your experience in Scientology. It was the hardest thing for me to do because how do I explain this experience? How do I experience HGC and red tagging and stats and doing liability formula? How do I explain that to an average? I couldn't. So I felt very lonely in that, and I wanted to find other people that have left. So, and I found Jenny. I connected with her on Facebook. She was still in good standing though with the church at that time. I don't know at the time of her death how it was, but she connected with me a little bit, and then she started to go, really, she was disturbed, I think after her friend's death. So I reached out to her and I messaged her and I said, maybe you can think of doing meditation and yoga and stuff like that. And maybe I should not have said that because she removed me and blocked me after that. I think that's something, it was a no-no.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I wanted to keep tab on everybody. Did you know Al Baker?
I know who he is. And then I remember he left the Sea Org. Did he die? Because I haven't seen him on social. Did he die?
I don't know. Did he die?
I don't know, because I remember he was on social media. So I never knew him in real life. I knew who he was because he was like one of the only famous Sea Org members who wasn't like an int exec.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who Al Baker was.
Exactly. Al Baker, exactly. He always stayed this is a course supervisor. He was my supervisor. He had met Ron, and he was, he was pretty cool. He left the Sea Org, but he was in good standing because when he saw me connecting to Marty Rathburn and Mark Rinder on Facebook and stuff like that, he messaged me and he said, I feel very sad to see that you have gone to the dark side. So, and then I think he used to live in France, I think, he left. It was a shocking thing for me to see him leave too, actually.
It's funny, someone like Al Baker, I think to myself, if you love Scientology so much, why did you leave the Sea Org?
Exactly. Exactly. Why did you leave? Stay, what did it not have to offer you? Why did you have the feel to need? And also this goes for me with a lot of people that are in good standing with the church still. I mean, I understand because they have families and stuff like that. And I didn't have any of that. I literally left and went home. I had my doubts. I had to be sneaky about leaving. That's another story because of doing all these, being somebody that would prevent people from leaving. I know all the ways of what to do to sneakishly leave. And when I left, I just went back home. I went back to my family, and that's it. I started from where
So when you left the Sea Org, did you route out or did you blow?
I blew. So I think I'm
so that's why leaving the Sea Org was the same as leaving Scientology.
I left, exactly.
So that must have been hard, right? Because you were here on a passport, and I'm assuming they were holding your passport or your visa or everything. So how did that happen?
So when I came to Flag Liaison Office from Denmark, I was routing into the program. So part of the routing in was seeing the ethics officer and seeing there was another person that was kind of taking care of the visas of foreign staff, right? So you have to hand in your passport. So I handed in my passport, and I never saw my passport until I left.
And so they demanded that you turn your passport over.
Absolutely demanded today. Yeah, there was no way around it. You had to hand in your passport. So I didn't have my passport. I was in the US on a tourist visa for 6 months, and and they were just winging it because I couldn't finish this magistrate lineup in 6 months. So I applied for another 6 months. And then I always kept track of this stuff because I didn't want to run into legal issues with immigration, So I applied for another 6 months, and then I applied for another 6 months, but I applied. They didn't apply for me. The person that was taking care of my stuff went to RPF or whatever. So my passport, my application, and a bunch of other people's just sat on someone's desk. I think it was Jeff Jeff Porter?
I know the name, but I didn't know
Yeah,
him.
he was an exec in FLO, and he was supposed to take care because I think it was his junior that went to RPF. So my case was on his desk. So I was not hearing back from the immigration. I was like, oh, this is weird. And then it was around the time where they wanted to actually transfer me to be an inter-readiness unit auditor. They wanted to kind of steal me from New Era anyway, and they want to keep me in FLO. So they kind of pulled me aside and then said that, we want to keep you here, and and we're going to apply for you to get an R1 visa, which is a religious visa. We're going to apply for an R1 visa for you. And I was like, okay. And it was around the time when I was doing these auditings that I did Lizzie's sec check and other sec checks, and I was having like doubts and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure where I stood with it, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. So they applied, and it took like a few months, and during these months I was brewing leaving. I was like, what should I do? Should I just say I did LSD? Because if you've done LSD, it's game over. You have to leave the Sea Org. Like, you can't be in the Sea Org if you've done LSD or acid. I was like, what if I just say, oh, I remember I did LSD and it came up in session, sorry, I'm not qualified anymore. Like, I was coming up with all these ways to leave, but I knew better to not say to anybody that I want to leave, because that was the end. I would be put into the galley. I would be put on watch. I would be put in It's just, no, I wasn't going to do that. So I was going to just keep it here, and make sure I FN on meter checks and whatever, which I knew how to FN. I knew how to make myself FN, of course. So
what was your method for FNing?
Not thinking of anything. Like, literally clearing your head, go into a meditative state, not even thinking happy thoughts, and then you would FN.
Okay, so no physical tricks.
No physical tricks. No,
Okay.
no physical tricks. Just like go into this kind of a meditative state where I see it now as a meditative. I didn't know what I was doing back then, but I was going into this meditative state of clearing your head. So during this time, suddenly I got a letter back from immigration that not only we are denying this visa, she needs to leave within 15 days or she will be deported.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, oh my God, this just fell from the gods. Like, this is my chance. This is perfect. I was happy to get that letter of rejection. I was so happy. And I went to the ethics officer and I was like, oh my God, I'm from Iran, and you guys don't want to get in, you don't want to get in trouble for that, having a illegal Iranian citizen in America. For like, I kind of bubbled it up a little bit, and I kind of scared the ethics officers, like, this is not good. I need to go, and I need to reapply, and come back, and and I played it really cool, and I played it in a way that, I'm sad, but I'm determined to come back because I want to finish my training. And I became very sneaky, Aaron. I had
if you had been cooperating, how long would you have had to go back to Iran for before they'd let you come back? Because you'd already overstayed. That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Exactly. I overstayed and I messed up my visa. I was actually barred 10 years and I was given a waiver back. I met somebody later in life that helped me write a letter and get that lifted. And,
okay. So even on the best of circumstances, it looked like you were going to have to leave the US for 10 years.
Yes, exactly. So exactly. So that plan of me being an FLO as an inter-readiness unit auditor, was bust. So they were like, okay, then they want to obviously keep me in the Sea Org. So I have to go back to Denmark for now to see. They would probably send me on a mission somewhere. I knew, they would probably had this in mind for me to send me on a country somewhere on a mission where I could get a visa. I think this would have been my destiny in Sea Org if that happened. But yeah, I played it up, and because it was 15 days, they couldn't even do a proper sec check on me. They did a metering check on me, and where my roommate, I remember she was Gabby Fox. I don't know if I'm sure she's still in the Sea Org. She was like, "Hey, I don't understand how you're not getting sec checked." I'm like, I don't know, because I have to leave in a week. I don't know. Just I just like kind of play it like dumb, like I don't know. But she was like really like, it doesn't make sense. You're not getting sec checked and you're leaving for a long time. She was like pushing it. I was like, I was so scared she would go to the ethics officer and bring it up, and and so so walking on eggshells. In the meantime, I miscalled an FN once, and if you miscall an FN, your PC red tags. And then if your PC red tags and the red tag goes over for 24 hours, the whole HGC loses their stats for that week. So it's a big deal for a red tag. So during that time, my PC red tag, and I became very ill. I fell ill. I had 102 temperature, and I was sent to isolation. I was sent to ISO. It's called ISO. And my PC red tagged, and I was sick to my stomach. I was vomiting. I almost died. I was like just in the ISO by myself. I remember the HGC. It wasn't Silka at that time. It was somebody else before her. I forgot their name. He came and he knocked on the door. He's like, "Get the fuck out of the bed and get your PC in fucking session right now." And I was like, "But I'm very sick." He's like, "Breath in a mirror. Breath in a mirror." And for those that breath in a mirror is a L. Ron Hubbard quote that if an auditor has ha in a mirror and you see breath and seam, they can audit.
In other words, if you're alive, you can audit.
Yeah, if you're alive, you can audit. And it's a very small HCOB somewhere in one of the balls, if I remember correctly. So
yeah.
Get up and audit your PC. So I went very sick in the chair, and I took care of the PC. The PC was not offending because she was sad for me that I was in that shape. It was the session took for hours. Finally, I took to her examiner. She FN. I went directly back to ISO. And when I was in ISO, I was lying on the bed. I was like, you know what? There is something very inhumane about this. Yes, we're clearing the planet. We're doing all this stuff. But this was basic humanity that was deprived of me. This cannot be right. There's something not right about this, And obviously being brainwashed into an ideology, you always doubt yourself, you false data strip yourself constantly, So I was always doubting, but so that's why when that letter from the immigration came, that was my ticket to freedom. I was so happy.
So where did they send you?
So they sent me back to Iran. They bought me a ticket back to Iran with Swissair. So I had to go back to Iran and reapply for a Danish visa to go back to Denmark.
Oh, yeah. They couldn't send you right to Denmark.
No, they could not send me back to Denmark. They had to send me back to Iran. So I remember when I was ready to leave, I called my mom. I said, "Hey, I'm coming home." She was shocked. She was absolutely shocked because they were worried about me. I wasn't calling them. I wasn't contacting them because, as you know, and as many of your guests have said in this channel, that in Sea Org and Scientology, you don't really have family or parents. Your parents, used to be your kid in another life. It's there. You don't have, your family is not really your family. So, and my parents were not in Scientology. So if they called me, it was a liability. They're not in Scientology and they're calling you. And, so I always got in trouble a little bit if my mom called me, tried to reach out to me. But so telling her that I'm coming home was a shock. So yeah, I went back to Iran.
And that was it.
No, I went back to Iran, and I was supposed to go to the Danish embassy to get a visa to go back to Denmark. So they kept, calling me about the process. Did you go to the embassy? We're sending the invitation letter, da, da, da. And then at one point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ghost at this point. I'm just going to and I told my parents, I said, I'm not going to pick up. I didn't have any cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone or anything. I didn't even have an email address, nothing. I said, you know what? I'm not going to pick up the phone, landline. And I'm just not going back. And I told my parents, I'm not going back. I told them what happened. I was so malnutritioned. I was so thin. I was very, very thin. And when they saw me, they were like, they gasped. Because I was on rice and beans for some years in FLO, because they were down stats, so they weren't feeding the staff. So not even out of work training. So I was in rice and beans for years. So I was very malnourished. So when I went to Iran, they contacted an Iranian woman that was a Scientologist in Iran. They found an Iranian woman. I don't know how they did that. That Iranian woman called our house. She would call and harass my parents, like, I need to talk to her. She needs to, I need to talk to her right now. This is not right. And she has blown the staff, da da da, and all that. And my dad, bless his soul, he passed away a while ago. He said, he picked up the phone. He's like, you know what? Never, ever, ever, ever call this house ever again. You will never see my daughter. You will never speak to her ever again. And if you call here one more time, I will contact the authorities. That was it. Because if he had contacted the authorities, she would have gotten in trouble with the Iranian regime. That was it.
Wow.
Done. Gone.
Wow. What did your parents think of this entire time that you were in LA working for Scientology?
They were very worried, because I had some cousins and some family in Los Angeles as well as New York. So I had taken Liberty at time to go see them for Persian New Year and some holidays. And they had, when they saw me, they had reported to my mom, my parents, that Mersede her eyes are glazed over. She's not there. We are worried about her. Like, she's just not, and she speaks in a very funny tone, and she speaks in a very robotic way, in a very funny tone. And this was me doing all these e-metering drills, trying to be, going up at the end, asking questions as an auditor. That affected my speech. You know what I mean? Has anything been suppressed? Has anything been invalidated? And I start talking like that in real life. And for a WOG, which I'm so, like, I feel so guilty calling these people WOGs at that time. They were shocked. So they reported to my parents. My parents thought they lost me. They thought I was just gone. I went into this weird vortex of cult mentality.
Were they aware that anytime they tried to call LA to get a hold of you, that it was like a problem, that you would practically get in trouble? Did they know?
No, I was not allowed to say anything like that. I was made to make everything look very normal. I'm just, because I'm busy and, I'm doing important things, and, that's why I wasn't able to contact. No. Mm-mm.
Would someone have to listen in on the phone calls when you spoke to them?
I used a phone card, and I went to the phone booth outside next to, I don't know if you saw that, remember HGB, there was like a laundromat next to HGB and a dry cleaner. So no, but they, and the letters that were written to me were in Farsi. So that was a really good thing. So they couldn't control. It wasn't in Farsi letters, so they couldn't control what eavesdrop into my letters either.
Wow, that's a nice little loophole.
It is.
They're like, back before there was Google Translate or anything.
Yeah, no.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, you got the golden parachute sort of the immigration, and the irony is the immigration thing came up because they tried to get you an R1 visa.
Yes.
And it's amazing how incompetent Scientology is on this immigration stuff, considering most of their workforce depends on it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because they don't really have anybody that is expert in this subject. At least they didn't have at that time. It was just somebody that just put that hat on and started to, take care of applications. Had they not applied for an R1 for me, I would have just overstayed this damn visa forever and, be barred even more. I'm glad I got that lifted. And that's a whole nother story. I got so lucky that got lifted because I was able to prove that it was a circumstance beyond my ability, beyond my control. I kind of qualified for a clause under that law, and I was able to prove that. And so they waived it for me. They kind of forgave it.
That's incredible. So in order to prove that, though, you had to present all this Scientology stuff to the government?
I had to present it to the U.S. Embassy. After I went to Iran, I met a gentleman online in Sweden, my former fiance, and I went to Sweden. I moved to Sweden, and that's where I was Googling the hell out of Scientology and OTs and stuff like that. And I started working for an American company, and the person was working with U.S. Embassy. He was kind of working on the IT infrastructure of the U.S. Embassy. And I told him my story. And because he was kind of, and I said, because he wanted to send me to the U.S. I was his employee. He wanted to send me to U.S. for works and seminars. And I said, I can't go. I can't go. And I told him my story. And he was like, you know what? This is bullshit. We're going to take care of this. And he was like, in a Scientology tone 40, he was like, no, we need to take care of this. This is bullshit. This is false. And so he knew people in the U.S. Embassy, and he helped me put together a letter and some evidence that I was in the Sea Org, I was in this cult, pictures and stuff like that. And I went for an interview, and I spoke to the guy behind the booth, and I literally told him what happened. And he looked at me. He's like, you know what? Last night on BBC, I saw something about Scientology, actually. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, like, this is crazy, and don't ever join another cult again, okay? And I was like, okay. And he's like, you know what? It's out of my hands, though. It's the State Department that has to decide on this case, but I will send it up to the State Department. Bless his soul. Thank you for doing that. Had he not done that, I would have been barred forever. And he sent it, and it got approved, and it was lifted.
Wow. So the U.S. State Department determined that by being in the cult of Scientology, you basically overstayed your visa due to circumstances totally out of your control.
Yeah, circumstances out of my control. Mm-hmm. And when I got the new U.S. visa, the waiver, the clause was sitting underneath my visa, that clause. Waiver because of circumstances out of the petitioner's control.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible. I wonder how many people stay in the Sea Org because they're afraid that if they leave and go home, because so many of these people have overstayed their visas.
Absolutely. I know.
And they want to be able to stay in the US, and they think that if they leave, they'll never be able to come back.
Absolutely. This is the case. I am 110% sure there are bazillion, if not, there is a lot of Sea Org members that have overstayed their visa, that don't have a status. And some of them are older. I was in my 20s, Aaron. I just went back and I got back into the world. I went back to school. I opened a bank account. I got an email account, But some of these Sea Org members are in their 60s. They're in their 50s. They don't even know how to live in the outside world anymore. Where are they going to go? It's done. They're in the prison. They're trapped. That's why I was very sad. And I still am, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. Now, fast forward a little bit, and you ended up being the minister at Marty Rathbun's wedding to Mosey, or one of the weddings. I think there was more than one.
Yeah, it was
How
two.
the hell did that happen?
How did that happen? So so it happened from the place where so in 2000, I think it was 2011, 2012, I saw a picture of Mike Rinder on Facebook with a baseball cap. I think he was sitting in a boat with Marty Rathbun. I didn't know Marty Rathbun at that time, but I knew Mike Rinder very well because I would see him at events all the time. I would see him up there at the events. Scavenge would invite him into the stage, so I knew Mike Rinder. I knew his voice very well. So when I saw his face on Facebook, first of all, that was a confirmation for me that if the highest person in Scientology has left, I mean, this whole thing just, fell apart for me right away. But I wrote to Mariella, Nazanin Morniani's mom, because we were in contact at that time. I forgot how me and her met. We met through a mutual friend on Facebook. And I messaged her because she was a good friend of Marty Rathbun at that time. She's not anymore. She's not in good standing with him anymore, but she was a good friend of Marty and Mosey and Mike, and Nazanin and all that, they were all friends. So I messaged her. I said, oh my God, Mariella, do you remember Mike Rinder? And then she's like, yeah, da, da, da. And then Marty Rathbun. And I said, I don't know Marty Rathbun, actually. I don't know who he is at all. And so she told me about it, and so we had a conversation about it. A few weeks later, she messaged me. He's like, "Sweetie, what do you think about doing Marty Rathbun's wedding, Scientology wedding?" And I was like, "What?" Me? And she's like, "Yeah, like, because Mosey's dad has a pacemaker and she can't travel, or he can't travel, sorry, for her wedding. I think their wedding was in Florida. The first wedding was in Florida. So they're doing another wedding, the second wedding in New York, in Long Island." And I wasn't, because I'm based in New York. He's like, "You're in New York? I'll put you in touch with Marty. Why don't you do his wedding? You will be the perfect person for it." And I was like, huh. And to be very honest with you, the reason I did it was because of the bizarre irony and craziness of it. It was like, me being a minister at a wedding, and it's like, sure, I'll do it. I'm going to do it. It's bizarre. It's a bizarre situation. I'm going to do it. And actually, I have done the minister's course when I was on a magistrate lineup. I had passed the minister's course, and I've trained on these stuffed animals in the course room, how they had those. So I actually had, so I've done the course. Technically, I am the minister. So I did. She put me in touch with Marty. Marty sent me the sermon. It was hilarious. I memorized it to the T. I think I did a really good job. I sent you the video. I think I did a good job. I didn't shake or anything. And so I went to Long Island and I met with Marty and Mosey. Actually, no, I met with them. It was like a very low-key wedding. So I met with them earlier that day in their house. And then we went to her parents' place where the wedding was supposed to take place. And that was the first time I was even meeting with Marty and knowing about Marty. Yeah. And
amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any contact with them after the wedding?
Yes. So after the wedding, we were in contact back and forth. I started to get a lot of phone calls from the Church of Scientology after that, the whole thing. I started getting harassed. I have 15 numbers blocked on my phone. Everyone, Scientology 1, Scientology 2, Scientology 3. I blocked every phone number from the church. So they started to harass me. They sent a former Sea Org member that was my friend in FLO to meet up with me to try to lure me back. Wow. So I told Marty, I said, "Marty, this is happening." And then he said, yeah, he kind of yeah, this is what happens if you associate with us. What am I going to tell? That's exactly what happened, what he told me. So I stayed in contact with them, but then I lost touch after a while because I just got put off. I was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this. I want to live my life. I don't want to be harassed by the Church of Scientology. I don't want to be dealing with all of this. I will look at it from the sidelines as a fun thing, but I just don't want to deal with this anymore. So I kind of moved away. And to be honest with you, and I'm not saying that just because Marty and Mosey did what they did, but I never really connected with Mosey. We never connected really. I just didn't. And so I kind of just backed out of that. And then when I found out what happened, I was like, okay, I should trust my guts a little bit more and my intuition and my first impressions of people. So no, yeah.
Interesting. So it was Nazanin's mom who made that introduction for you.
Yes.
How did you know Nazanin? So Nazanin is she's a former Scientologist, a fantastic actress, by the way.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And she was the first girlfriend that was found for Tom Cruise. And then she's the one that when he decided, is she the one who pissed off Tom by saying "very well done" to him? I think so.
Yes, I think so.
When he won his big fat freedom medal, very well done. And he found that to be condescending.
Condescending, yeah. And she probably said it with a British accent, which is probably more condescending.
And then but which is crazy because very well done is something Scientologists say to each other all the time.
Yeah.
But you normally wouldn't say it to someone senior to you.
True. Yeah, probably.
And I guess Tom was like, "Do you know who you're speaking to? I'm one of the two biggest beings in this sector of the Galactic Federation."
I know. Very well done. What?
And then I think she had trouble understanding Miscavige because of his sort of South Philly or South Jersey accent, whatever he's got. Did you know Nazanin when you were in Scientology?
I did not. No, I didn't know Mariella nor Nazanin. I think Nazanin's career was just starting around that time, but I think she was affiliated with the CC and she was on Celebrity Lines. That's why she got recruited to even, to be Missy Tom Cruise's girlfriend. So no, I didn't know Nazanin. I didn't know her mom. I learned about them when I was introduced to Mariella, her mom, and then I learned about Nazanin, and I went to LA and I, met with Mariella, and it was around the time that I was being harassed continuously with the church and stuff like that. Yeah.
How were you introduced to Mariella though?
I think if my memory serves, it was a mutual former Scientologist that I knew at PAC that had also come out, because I connected with a bunch of people, bunch of Sea Org members and Class 5 members that I was training with on Facebook. I still have some of them on Facebook. So one of them connected me because she said, oh, this is another Iranian person, another Iranian. So that's how we got connected. But I didn't know them at all in Syria. I only saw Coco and Farid, except myself. That was Iranian. Yeah. So it was great. So that we connected like that.
Now, Scientology is like illegal in Iran, right?
Illegal.
Were your parents like scared for like, was it putting them in any sort of a weird position to have you in the States? Were they afraid? They couldn't tell anyone what you were doing, right?
No, they didn't, they weren't, but some of my friends in Iran had started a rumor for me that was very actually worrying. I was like, why did you guys start this rumor that I was joining some cult? They didn't know what cult, but I was joining, and that's a red flag to the government, like joining cults. Like that's like, I found out about it later when I was visiting Iran once, and a friend of mine is like, yeah, we thought you joined, a blog cult. I was like, holy shit. Is that what you guys think? I could be like taken to jail right now. Like, how is that? So no, they were not even in touch with me. I wasn't even in touch with them at that time. I was they lost me for 4 years, technically.
When you got permission to go back to the United States, were they like, oh my God, she might join again?
So Scientology found me again when I was in Sweden, and they made one of my best friends, which I said, Ania McQually. Unfortunately, she's in Golden Era Productions, unfortunately, right now. She called me to lure me back into Scientology and telling me, things are water under the bridge and we can fix this and da 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 da. And I thought, and through Facebook again, they found out that I have come back to the US. And when they found out I came back to the US, that's where they sent like my fellow out of work people that I used to know at that time to come see me and kind of lure me back into the org. They sent one Class 5 staff member that I actually used to have a crush on when I was at org training, but we couldn't do anything because I was Sea Org, it was Class 5. I would go to RPF. So nothing happened, but I had a huge crush on him. And I don't know if it was a coincidence, but he messaged me and he's like, oh, I want to meet with you and da da da. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll meet with you. I don't care, and I will say that I'm not in the Sea Org. So I met up with him and he's like, you know what? There is now a new golden age of tech. I didn't even know that they redid all this stuff again. Oh my God. And I was like, I said, listen, this is exactly why I left. Thank you. Another round of golden age of tech. I'm running for my life right now. So
wow.
I have to tell you, Aaron, if I was not on tech or auditing lines, and if I was not exposed to the tech side of Scientology, I would probably maybe be there as some admin person. I did everything. I applied the tech to the T, but the tech it's not absolute. It doesn't freaking work. The FN, all the reads, the e-meter phenomena, it's very arbitrary. It's not based on any science. It's pseudoscience, and so So yeah, when I was put on these pilot courses, this is what I want to, one thing I want to say. When I was put on that FBRD pilot course, which was changed to Evil Purpose Rundown, whatever.
I've never heard this. Like, you've said that a few times, and I didn't know if you were misspeaking. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it was Evil Purpose Rundown. Yeah, and the course pack that was given to me, the HCOBs had St. Hill Manor, East Grinstead, Sussex, revised year 2000, revised year 2001, and I'm like, so I'm reading this course pack. I'm like, from what? I thought Ellery said there is no hidden data line. I thought he completed his work before he left. I thought you're etching every single word he has ever said in platinum and burying it into the ground for next generation. How is there now this new line coming in from Evil Purpose Rundown that requires you guys to redo everything? And that was the third thing that woke me up, was those HCOBs that were kept getting revised over and over and over. I'm like, who the hell is revising these? Like, who's revising this stuff? So
interesting. So was it a combination of seeing this tech that you're told was unalterable and pure and it's being changed, combined with hearing some crazy shit in the people that you were sex checking?
Absolutely. Combined with that, and combined with the inhumanity of, you know, when they pulled me out of ISO, that left a damning impression on me. That kind of woke me up that this is not humane. Why are we even doing this? If we cannot even be decent to each other as humans, like what are we here for? You know, clear the planet for what? You know, so yeah, it was a combination of all of this stuff, and that whole immigration thing just fell in my lap. Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, do you happen to recall so like were you attending Sea Org weekly staff meetings at the FLO?
Yes.
Do you have any memory of some of the key international stats?
Key international stats? Oh yeah, it was, well, the stats were always up. I remember I would do the weekly staff meetings. And then they stopped letting they would only let Sea Org OOTs join the staff meetings. And then after a while, they stopped even letting because I think their stats were going down. And they stopped, they didn't allow us, even though I was technically New Era. So I was actually higher than FLO. So sometimes they would let me in. I was able to even go to the different floors that other OOTs couldn't go to. But to answer your question, the stats were always up until we were not allowed to be in the staff meetings anymore. And that's where rice and beans came in.
But do you, other than them being up, do you happen to remember the general range of any of the key international statistics, whether it's gross income or well done auditing hours? I don't know what I was never in an FLO staff meeting. I don't know what weekly stats they report. In and started, active Scientologists, bodies in the shop. I mean, did they report any of those? What a class 5 staff member would recognize as key weekly stats?
Yeah, their stats were mostly, because it was a management org. It was not a public org. So they weren't giving service to public. They were giving not even service to staff. It was all sec checks left and right. So the main stats that they would show was mostly the auditing per hour, the HEC auditing per hour, which was all out of work trainees that were kind of raising those stats.
Only internal? They wouldn't, not international?
No, only internal. Yeah, FLO staff meetings were only internal for FLO. Yeah.
Oh.
From what I remember. Yeah.
Interesting. So okay, so you leave the Sea Org, you go to Sweden, then you go back to back to LA. What did you think when things like Going Clear started coming out, and then the Aftermath show and things like that?
Going Clear was great. It was actually when I think Going Clear came out, sometimes I was in contact with Marty, so I thought it was, people asked me about that. So I got a lot of questions when Going Clear came out. I got a lot of questions from friends, people that knew I was in Scientology, that, is this right? Is this accurate? Even that guy, Dan, Dan Rather, that guy.
The news guy?
The news guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I met him once in Tibet House in New York. And he asked me, I told him about, because he's very interested. He always covers religion and spirituality and cults. That's his area. So he had covered Scientology. He asked me about that. So to answer your question, I got a lot of questions from it. I thought it was great. I thought it was, because nothing substantial was out before that. And then Aftermath was, all these stories that came out. I thought it was really great. And then also Mike Rinder's channel and his blog. But then I have to say, not to rub your ego or anything, but this has been the most monumental for me, because I feel this is very effective, because you're just giving voice to so many people, and people like me that was kind of silent technically, except for that wedding that I did in 2011. I was just passive. I was just like silent, doing my thing, and I'm just listening all to your channel. I was like, oh my God, I was part of this. I know what they're talking about. I know, I know these people. Like you mentioned Nick Christensen once from Bridge Publication, that was part of that lawsuit, right? And a bunch
and Gavin
of
Potter. Did you know Gavin?
Yes, I've heard of his name, Gavin, from Nick. Okay. But yeah, I knew Nick very well, because he was also training at FLO. Yeah, and he had just come out of RPF, so for Out 2D. So yeah, it's very surreal. It's really shaped me. I think Scientology has really shaped me, but I see it as a positive thing, because it has made me to be a critical thinker, be very agnostic and very individualist. I cannot stand collective thinking or group thinking. I'm very libertarian as a result. So, but yeah.
Well, you mentioned when we started, we were chatting off camera, that you're almost done with a PhD program.
Yeah. Yes, I'm
WTF, OMG.
OMG. Yes, it only took 10 years, but I always loved spirituality and theology and philosophy, and my PhD is a PhD in philosophy and from the perspective of art and aesthetics. And metaphysics and ontology. So when I left the Sea Org, I dabbled into Buddhism. I have friends that are in Buddhist philosophy. I started studying a little bit of Buddhism, Zen. I was always into all the spiritual, philosophical, lane, so to speak. So, but yes, the PhD is coming up, and I intend to make it my my life journey to continue with the content that's being presented in the work. So
that's incredible. That was really incredible. Okay, so as you being someone else who spent a lot of time on both sides of the e-meter, and we haven't chatted about this at all, but I'm curious to pick your brain on this. I don't necessarily believe in spirituality at this point. I don't rule it out, but I put it in the bucket of I just not present with any evidence that I find credible. But I'm open-minded. So when people say, how does the e-meter work and what makes the e-meter read and all this kind of stuff, I go, you know what? I sure as hell don't believe that it works the way L. Ron Hubbard says it works, obviously, with the magnetic field around the body and the impingement, the electromagnetic impingement of the facsimiles on the all that carrier wave and all that bullshit. And I go, but it sure as fuck isn't hand sweat.
Yes, exactly. But you know what?
We all know what it's like to sit there with the cans being totally still and have the tone arm go all the way up in the middle of an auditing session and come all the way down at the end. And the TA going up and the TA going down is not the same thing as a fall and a rise. And I realize there's no question here yet. I just don't know how to account for an actual fall. I know how to account for the TA going up and the TA going down due to hand grip and either hand grip or moisture. I don't know how to account for an actual fall.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up, because and also people in the audience that have been auditors in the past and worked with the e-meter. One thing that is very intriguing about the e-meter, Aaron, is that, of course, it's not how LRH says, but there is one thing that is very consistent with everybody. Everybody gets a fall. Everybody gets a dirty needle. Everybody gets a rock slam. Everybody gets an FN. It's all the same.
Do you actually believe in rock slams, though? Because I don't.
Oh, really? I've never seen a rock slam in my entire. One time I
Really?
saw a rock slam, but it was my. That's cool, actually. I never thought about that. Maybe they don't even exist.
They do
I
not
never.
exist.
Yeah, I've never seen one. I was always afraid that I would rock slam. Every time I saw the auditor doing this to his email, I was like, "Oh my god, did I rock slam? Is he checking for rock slam?" I've never seen it, but for me, the FN, which I've gotten in trouble bazillion times, happens the same way for everybody. How is that possible? I don't know how that's possible.
That's
What
right.
is yeah.
Technically speaking, a legitimate looking FN, that's not hand sweat. That's not breathing. That's not. Now I could fake an FN because I had a very, very strong metab. So
Oh, I
a
see.
tiny little breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth when the auditor's looking at the meter and is not looking at me. I could make that thing
Wow.
FN. Now you wouldn't think that would work, right? Because it falls faster than it rises.
Yeah, and it would be jittery. It wouldn't be a rhythmic sweep of a needle, as it said.
Some happy thoughts and some tiny little nose breaths, was
Yeah.
the magical formula. But like, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Like, yeah,
No.
the falls, the dirty needles, the floating needles, it's not fucking hand sweat. It's not squeezing the cans.
No,
I don't know
it's
what
not.
it is.
Exactly. I don't know what it is. And this is a question mark for me. And I always wanted to pose this question to anybody out there. What do you guys think it is? Because yes, it's not. And it really responds to something. And instant read. There's something called the instant read, right? It's not just a read. You have to get an instant read. An instant read is at the tag end of the word, the needle responds. If a needle responds prior or late, it didn't respond to your word. It doesn't matter. The PC thought of something else. But if you say, has anything been suppressed? That's a read. Right.
Now I'll tell you, for me, the only difference between an instant read and a prior read and a latent read is the proximity of that needle action to the end of the last word. I tend to, by the way, my trick for not having sec check questions read instantly is to use my little breathing through the nose technique to make sure it reads prior. If it reads prior, it can't. If it reads prior, it can't read instant.
I wonder if my PCs had used that because. Oh my god. Let me just sidetracking. I have a funny story. I was sec checking this gentleman, African American gentleman. He was he was like Al Baker, very cool, and he was doing routing out of the Sea York sec check, and his sec check was short. I think he was older, and he wanted to. So during the last days of his sec check, I think we had like 2 more questions left before he was done. He was started to shed his uniform, and he was starting to wear like suits, like different color suits. So he would show up to session wearing suits and a flower here and a hat. It was awesome. He was celebrating.
Who was that? Do you remember who it was?
Yeah, his name is Akbar. I don't remember his last name. His first name is Akbar. And he was older at that time. He was done. He wanted to leave. And suddenly one time I was in the auditing chair, he got up and he started to run out of the auditing room. And that means the PC has blown, right? And he's tall. He was like 6'5". And I started to run after him, like in the hallway. I thought, oh my God, he's blowing. I'm going to go into ethics again for the 30th time. And he just wanted to use the bathroom.
Wow, he must have had to go really bad.
He just had to go really bad, and he just didn't tell me. He just didn't want to say. He just got out and ran. Anyway, that was just like a very funny story. But yes, the e-meter. Going back to the e-meter, it's a mystery. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's responding to, honestly. And the fact that it's very consistent for everybody makes it even more weird.
Yeah. And how the TA tends to go up during the auditing session the way it's supposed to, and tends to come down at the end of the auditing session the way it's supposed to. And you're
supposed to be in a range, Yeah. And if it goes lower, sometimes when it goes low, it's sweat. Going low, it's associated with sweat mostly. But sometimes also is associated, if I remember correctly, with somebody that doesn't want to look at their case or something.
An overwhelmed case.
Overwhelmed case, exactly. Yeah.
And so again, when I say this, sometimes I think people are going to misunderstand that I'm saying that I'm implying that there is something extra special that it's reading on. And I go, no, because I don't even believe in that something extra special. I'm just saying you spend hundreds and thousands of hours working with this thing on both sides. It's not hand sweat.
No, No, it's not hand sweat. I guarantee you it's not hand sweat because I had PCs that, they put that cream on, obviously. If your hand
Oh,
is
it
too
was the worst
dry.
smelling. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Nothing smells worse than a sweaty hand and standard hand cream.
the hand cream with the red on it. Oh my God. It was just one type of hand cream that they allowed us to use because it didn't have any smell.
It was
Standard.
standard
It
hand
was,
cream.
oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Remember
that's what.
the brand name was standard.
It was called Standard. I know. That's so funny. It looked like the tube, the glue tube. Anyway, so yeah, so I guarantee you it's not just hand sweat. I know for a fact it's not, but I do not know what it is. And the e-meter up to today is a complete mystery for me. I don't know what it's picking up on. Yeah. I mean, when I say spiritual, like I'm not really spiritual. I'm agnostic. I'm a researcher. As a researcher, you need to be agnostic and you need to just be very questioning everything. Otherwise, you can't even write a PhD if you have a belief system going on. But so I don't know if it's the spirit, if it's the Atman, if it's the, whatever. I don't know what it is, but it's something. It's not, maybe it's your brain signals. So
Yeah. I wish somebody would do some honest to God. Well, I'm sure there's some people that would go, it's just a galvanic. I'm sure someone would say there have already been tons of studies done on this thing. It's not a special device. It's just a potentiometer. It's a galvanic skin, resistance measure or whatever. And I know being in Scientology, we think there's something super, super special about the technology of that meter. And the truth is there isn't.
there isn't, no.
But I don't know that anyone in any other field, I'm guessing they haven't spent thousands of hours using that machine in that way.
Exactly. And I wish, exactly. And I think that's what's missing. I wish somebody that had actually been an auditor and had used that to start researching this, because then you see for yourself that it's consistent. The consistency is mind-boggling to me. Why is everybody having the same types of reads? That's weird.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's something that hopefully somebody that comes out of the Sea Org and they're an engineer can answer for us. But yeah.
Well, very, very cool. Are your parents just absolutely thrilled? I mean, I know it's been a long time, but were they just absolutely thrilled to have you back? They had no way of knowing whether they were ever going to get you back.
Yeah, they had no idea. They're absolutely thrilled. The last time we spoke that we wanted to do this interview, I was in Europe. I was traveling with my mom, and I told her that I might do this interview, and she's like, "Oh wow, like that's like such a long time ago." I'm like, "Yeah." So I was like kind of taking her back. She's like, "Are you joining?" Like she was scared. Like I'm like, "Am I going back?" Like no. Opposite. I'm trying to speak about it. I'm speaking up about it for the first time. Feel comfortable to talk about it. I think it's important.
Have you gotten to a point in your life where there aren't even really former Scientologists that you associate with, really?
Former Scientologists that I associate with right now, just Mariella sometimes, Nazanin's mom, sometimes, and I have kind of exchanged some messages with Mike, but that's it. No former. I always keep track though. If anybody has come out, I always look people up, but a lot of people are still in, unfortunately, and yeah. But no, I'm kind of not in that world anymore.
And you're in New York, not LA, right?
I'm in New York. Yeah, I'm New York based. I never went back to LA.
Yeah, not a lot of Scientologists in New York.
Not at all. I did see there is sometimes they hand out pamphlets in Times Square. And I had walked by and somebody handed me a pamphlet one time and I went back and said, "Been there, done that. Get out what you can. Plant those seeds."
Get out while you can.
Plant those seeds before they send you to you can get out easier when you're in lower management. When you're higher up, it just gets harder and harder to leave, as you know. Yeah.
Well, here's a question for you. Sarah S asks, Mersede, thank you for sharing. I'd imagine that people from countries with high control governments like Iran would be a bit immune to Scientology manipulation. Do you think growing up in the US made you a bit less wary than other Iranians?
If it would be immune to church, I think no. I think the difference with me was you know, Iranians, like, I'm kind of stereotyping a little bit, but my demographic, Iranians, we love, you know, easy life. We love glamour. We love like expensive things. I was never like that. I was kind of, growing up in the US and the way my parents raised me, I was a little bit of a, down to earth hippie a little bit. So that's why it was easy for me to just like shed my clothes and wear a uniform and live a monk lifestyle or something like that. But they're not immune necessarily to Church of Scientology. I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think any of us are immune to you know, mind manipulation. I think it's everywhere. I think mind manipulation is so nuanced. Mind manipulation happens right now, you know, you know, with marketing and stuff like that. One of the reasons I never went to marketing, being, you know, in visual design. So I don't think any of us are immune from it. I think Iranian people and highly controlled governments like that have different ways of being manipulated in different ways, unfortunately.
Does your mom still live in Iran?
She does, yeah. She still lives in Iran, yeah. But my siblings are not. They're all out. Yeah.
Do you consider Iran I mean, is Iran run? It's run by a religious order, right? Am I?
Yeah.
The Ayatollah and everything?
Yes.
I mean, do you consider it to be kind of a cult in its own right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a cult in its own. It's basically run by, you know, the ideology that are extreme, that, you know, hamper on human rights. And, you know, a lot of people that are brainwashed into that ideology do everything they can to safeguard it, you know, like the conviction is so high. And that's people always ask me, what did you take away? What lesson did you take away from this experience being in a cult? And what I take away is that, first of all, brainwashing and mind manipulation is around us 24/7. And sometimes when you think that you are a little bit no more than other people, and you start to look down on other people, and you think that you're enlightened, that's when you're supposed to look and see, you know, check in with yourself. Am I in a cult? Am I being manipulated? Am I, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's unfortunately, it's very nuanced. And it's everywhere, like in North Korea, a country in a cult, you know.
I'm really glad you said that, because I've always felt that a lot of these other programs, or a lot of the programs that have been done about Scientology, I tried to look at what the reactions are to the programs from people who've never had anything to do with Scientology. And I've always thought that if the reaction is something along the lines of, "Oh my God, I can't believe people fall for this," then I go, the story was not told correctly.
Correct. Exactly.
Because if you think you could never fall for this, you are just as or more susceptible to falling for something like this. I think it's only when you go, "Oh my God, I can totally see how someone would fall for something like this."
Yeah.
Then that's when you're no longer susceptible to it.
Absolutely. And I think, and it's a matter of something, an organization. I mean, a cult could be one person. You can be in a cult with just your spouse, even, like, you know, to me, a cult could be as small as 2 people and as big as like 1 million people. But if somebody, if that thing finds your ruin, right? You know, they find the thing that ruins you and offers you a better way to be. It's very easy to, and there's something called Stockholm syndrome. It's very easy to fall in love with your captor and like bow down to your captor and like really go into it. And the grooming is very little. It happens little by little. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. If somebody comes and opens up the OT levels to somebody on the street, they're going to say you guys are crazy, but they don't do that. They start with the ARC triangle. They start with these things that actually do work a little bit, right? And they pull people in. So the grooming, the brainwashing in cults don't happen overnight. It's very little by little. And then, you know, you wake up one day and you forget who you are. You can't think for yourself. You think that cult, whatever that is in your head right now, looking at your thoughts. It has that feeling to it. So I always have absolute understanding for people that say that I didn't No, I couldn't get out. I couldn't, you hear the Mormon story, you hear Jehovah's Witness story, all these cults, even somebody leaving a relationship that couldn't leave a relationship. I understand it. I kind of understand it, not understand how that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is why so many people seem to resonate with stories of former Scientologists, or former cult members in general, is because there's so many common threads between that experience and other things in life, even like abusive relationships,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
the mechanisms of control and everything like that.
And the mechanisms of control, and just grooming you to a point where you're going to doubt it, you're gonna think that it's ultimate gaslighting, technically. So if you ever doubt anything, it's you, it's not that. So go false data strip yourself and put yourself back on track with this, because and we see that all the time. We see it even in our society, in our culture. We see it everywhere. So I kind of developed a very allergic reaction for all of that.
So you mentioned in the beginning that the alien stuff and like the space opera stuff is what you found most appealing about Scientology.
Yes.
And then you got in there and you were sort of disappointed that there wasn't as much of that in the policies as you expected.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say kept you in for the 4 years? Like, was there an overarching belief that you had about Scientology that kept you there, even if maybe you didn't want to be there?
Yes, I was sold into that. I was intrigued by the bridge. I was sold into the tech. I was sold into the fact that we actually have a technology, a roadmap for people to go up this spiritual journey and liberate themselves. So I was very much sold into all of that. So, and then I read Battlefield Earth. I read it when I was doing Pure from the Sauna, which was the worst idea. But I read Battlefield Earth, and I read a bunch of Ron's science fiction books and State of Mankind. I was like, okay, so there is some extraterrestrial aspect to this, but not as much as what that guy was telling me. So I was like, okay, this is actually pretty cool. So it's kind of light on aliens, but it's cool. It's not as like UFOs landing on our backyard type of thing. So it kept me in like that. I wanted to be part of something that helped the planet. And you know what? I was under 25. Your brain only develops fully when you're 25 years old. So I was very impressionable.
Right. So for me, it was funny because it was clear to me that the OT levels did not give anyone any special powers or abilities or knowledge or competence or intelligence or anything whatsoever. But I still had the belief in the upper unreleased OT levels. It's so silly, right? Because it seems so like naive. Like, don't believe who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? It's like, so everything I see in front of me showed me no evidence that this bridge was anything spectacular, but I still believed in the power of the upper unreleased OT levels, and I still believed in the prison planet implant station story.
TGAC. You believed in TGAC.
So well, you don't learn it's called TGAC until OT3.
That's true. That's true.
No, but I believed, well, cause that's the thing. There's the TGAC, the Xenu OT3 idea of prison planet, but then there's the non-confidential stuff of that. What Hubbard says, the troublemakers and the artists and the rebels and all this stuff. We're basically sent here. This is our prison. We were sent here on this outpost on a tier 3 planet of a tiny dwarf star on the outskirts of the galaxy and all this shit.
Yes.
And you're like, and only Scientology can wake everyone up and skip the between lives area so that we can eventually, as spirits, leave this planet and not be stuck here anymore. And it's like the craziest part of the whole thing. And it's like, but that's the part I believed.
How long were you? So how long did it go? Like after you left, for me, it tapered off little by little. I was still clearing my misunderstood words until like 5 years after that. But what about you? Like, how long did it take for you to kind of shed all of that?
I never had some sort of existential crisis as far as what do I believe or what I don't believe. But for me, as soon as I found out from Dan Kuhn, who had been the RTRC dur, CMO int, he'd been senior CS exec the exec officer, senior CS int office. Once he's told me that there were no upper unreleased OT levels that LRH left behind, and that was all a lie, I was like, done. That's all I need to hear. Done.
And I heard that from your channel, Aaron. Also, I actually thought that there is something that they are just not releasing. Can you imagine? Wow.
They've been lying to everyone every day for the last 40 plus years.
Does Miscavige, do you think Miscavige knows?
That's how he took control. Pat Broker and Annie Broker were the ones L. Ron Hubbard left in charge. Pat Broker claimed to have the unreleased OT levels in his files on the ranch, the horse ranch in San Luis Obispo or whatever. And Miscavige orchestrated a raid on that property when Pat Broker was out of town. And they confiscated everything. And they went through every scrap of every file in every cabinet, and there was nothing. And he basically called Pat Broker's bluff and said, "You don't have shit."
Oh my God.
And he's like, "Yeah, you're right. I got nothing."
Oh, that is crazy. I mean, is Miscavige even OT? Does he even know the tech? I doubt it.
I've never understood how people who were class 12 CSs trained by L. Ron Hubbard would let this little guy who was not trained by L. Ron Hubbard tell them that they've never understood what an instant read or a floating needle was before, and they've never understood how to audit. How is anyone listening to this guy? I don't get it.
One time, Aaron, one of the times that I was in ethics for miscalling an FN, I was in the ethics office and I was by myself, or like hunched over the Vol 0, and I was trying to do a process. I don't remember the name. Maybe somebody in the audience knows. It was when you are kind of comparing your dynamics against each other. I think it was
the conditions and exchange by dynamics.
Exchange by dynamics, exactly. Conditions and exchange by dynamics. Thank you. So I was doing that process, and then suddenly I heard this voice behind me. "What are you doing?" And I instantly recognized that voice. And I was like, "Oh my God." And I looked around, and it's Miscavige. It's a woman next to him. Now I know it was Shelly Miscavige. Back then I didn't know who Shelly Miscavige was. And 5 other people, they all came together into this ethics office, because sometimes Miscavige would do like random spot checks on middle management. He would come down and just walk around the org and do spot. So he walked in, and I was like, "Oh my God." And I was so shocked that I didn't even get up. I was still in the chair. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing exchange by dynamic, goals exchange by dynamics." And he's like, "What is that?" And I was like, he doesn't know what that is. He doesn't. And I was so shocked. I was like, how can he not know this? And all of this was going in my head. And then they walked out. Thank God they just walked in. They walked out. And I remember that was the impression I got, is like, this is weird. I thought he needs to know Scientology in and out. He's OT 8. He's like, he is Scientology. And he doesn't know this ethics, this little ethics process that I'm doing. He's like, what is that? So I thought that was very strange and a very weird encounter with a midget.
He's never sat down and done all the training the way a Scientologist is supposed to do it.
I can imagine.
I do believe he's probably read all the policies and the bulletins, and by this point probably listened to all the lectures, but just not in the way a normal Scientologist would be expected to go through it systematically. At this point, you get different feedback on whether he's probably finished OT 7 or OT 8. I just feel like he probably has by now, like, unless he's like, it's not necessary because he already knows what it is.
Yeah, he's like, let me do it. It's oh my God, it's just I'm very
like, honestly, once you know what the upper OT levels are, it's probably easy to go, I don't have to do that. Not the upper OT levels, the knots band and OT 8. Once he allowed himself to read the materials, he's probably like, I don't need that.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I don't think I know some people in your channel kind of were going back and forth if he actually believes in it or if he doesn't. Yeah. I feel like he's so, excuse my language, balls deep into these things that like right now he doesn't care. He's like, whatever.
I think he's just trying to figure out how to keep people believing that they're growing, that they're succeeding, that he is succeeding as a manager, because by any normal metric, he's been a complete failure as the running Scientology.
Yeah. Just do another Golden Ninja Tech 3, Golden Ninja Tech 4, Golden Ninja Tech 5. Oh, we forgot. Elroy said this here in this thing, and we're gonna put that here, and then da da da, and everything's gonna work now.
Just wait because they're doing all new command teams for the new OEC FEBC right now at Flag. They've been doing it for like 3 years now.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
just wait till because Miscavige realized nobody's ever properly understood L. Ron Hubbard policy before, and that's the new why for why Scientology.
So all these people that graduated as an OAC FEPC, they have to redo.
Oh, none of those people are even still around.
I know that's even the case. Exactly. Yeah, Nick Christensen was doing OEC FEPC. I don't know if he graduated or not, but
that would have been the old OEC FEBC, so that doesn't count.
Yeah. Wow.
So just wait when these new command teams are done being fired and they fire back to these ideal orgs and everything is still empty. What's he going to do next?
What is he going to do next? And I was shocked. I think last night, somebody said, no, it wasn't last night, in your podcast, that RPF is not even around either.
Oh, yeah, no, they canceled the RPF years ago.
I didn't even know that. RPF was our biggest fear. RPF was the boogeyman, because if you go to RPF and miscalling FNs is a high crime that would take you get a comment and then so I almost went to RPF. But it's basically you don't talk to anybody for 5 years by your twin, and it's a mind traumatizing experience. I'm glad it's gone.
It's probably one of the most psychologically and abusive things someone could experience in Scientology.
Yeah, I think so.
It's funny. On the one hand, one of the decisions to disband it was probably because of the horrible bad press it creates from former members who were on it. But I tend to believe that Miscavige's real reason for doing it is like these out ethics DB crims think that they can just get 5 hours of enhancement a day. What? No effing way. These guys need to get to work. These guys need to go on post.
True.
Just like a normal SEOG member where they never get any enhancement.
They were probably short on stuff like, let's bring the RPFers back. It's funny, but you said DB means degraded being, and I hadn't heard that in a long time. Yes, a DB. A DB was the worst thing you can say to somebody.
On this channel, we like using out ethics DB crims. When me and Reese, we go through the Facebook posts from the Scientology moms groups, right? And they're always talking about how bad their kids are and how lazy they are. And we're like, this 4-year-old out ethics DB crim needs to go get a job and get on post and train as the ethics officer for the org, get his exchange in.
A friend of mine used to talk about that, like just getting jobs and whatever. I thought about establishments that use WISE technology. And there is this dentist office in Long Island here in New York that uses WISE, and the guy is a Scientologist, and he doesn't use Novocaine for his for his patients.
Oh my God.
So a friend of mine went there, and he says that I don't use Novocaine, and so that's how she learned about Scientology, and she came and she told me about it. But that's crazy.
Wow.
Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you think, Aaron, though, that there was something good in it, though, or do you think it was top-down BS? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think there's something good in everything. Like, so good in it in the sense that you can't have anything that doesn't have any good in it. Like, if there was no good in it, nobody would ever stay to begin with.
Exactly. True. Exactly.
And yet, I'm not sure that the stuff that's good in it is unique to it. And it's funny, like a lot of the positive things I, particularly in the past have felt I took away are stuff that has nothing to do with actually Scientology itself. Like a Sea Org member, somebody's been in the Sea Org for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, has an unparalleled work ethic. Okay, well, that's not actually a benefit of being in Scientology. That's a benefit of being a slave.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's not a benefit of that. Exactly. And also the whole communication ARC thing, some people say that argue that that's really great and but I think those are, like you said, basic things that are not originated in Scientology. It's like basically common sense packaged together.
And I also don't think there's anything bad with people isolating things about Scientology they found helpful. Like if everyone just says it was all bad all the time, then we all look like a bunch of total fucking idiots. And it's not honest. It's also not honest. Like
it's not exactly
not all bad all the time. Nothing's all bad all the time. Period.
Yeah, because it wouldn't work. People wouldn't stay. People wouldn't even come in. Yeah, exactly. It's so yeah, exactly. There are
L.
some
Ron
things.
Hubbard was a twisted evil genius, but there's still genius in those 3 words. He figured out how to put some crazy shit together. That is
Absolutely.
a master class in manipulation. And as a part of that includes some things that people are going to find helpful.
Yes, penmanship and usage of words. Yeah, like the charming sociopath. Unfortunately, sociopathy, psychopathy sometimes goes hand in hand with genius, which is a very strange thing about humanity. So, he was that, I think, and yeah, I will never. For 4 years, I got up and hip hip hooray to the Commodore. And after I kind of pursued other spiritual paths, I never bowed to any guru ever, 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 ever again. I never put anybody in the pedestal. I never thought this person is the ultimate being. I remember watching those videos of Elleration. He had bad teeth and and I was like, why does he have bad teeth? I was like, oh no, I shouldn't think that. I'm being critical. I have overs and withholds.
It's funny. It's funny. When all you see is still static, heavily photoshopped pictures of LRH, it's easy to have this very charitable, sort of beautiful idea of who and what L. Ron Hubbard was.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw one of these old recorded motion pictures of L. Ron Hubbard. It might have been the Clearing Congress. I remember my first reaction was like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I was like, uh-oh, that's our guy?
That's our guy. Yeah, his teeth. Why is he talking like that? Why are his lips doing this weird thing?
Oh, I was like, oh God, oh shit, that's our guy.
That's our guy.
Yikes! And then I would find myself as I watched the videos over and over and over, trying to get more comfortable with that. This was our guy.
Exactly. That's what's supposed to be. It's very interesting how the mind, when you have a conviction and when you're washed into something, you do whatever. It's cognitive dissonance. You morph whatever you see in front of you to feed that conviction. So you know what I mean? So if we are sold that this was the Messiah, even his crooked teeth or his rotten teeth in his mouth was supposed to be like that. So
he was cause over life, just not cause over those teeth.
Yeah. His great grandson Jamie, is he active in
I've met him. We hung out in New York for a little bit. He's not necessarily active in the former Scientology world.
Right, exactly.
He has been, but not I'm not aware of him presently. If he was presently active, I would know about it. So I'm just saying that I don't believe that he is.
One other thing with his LRH's sorry, I'm saying whatever. It's my
you can say LRH.
Yeah, LRH, yeah. His wife, so his Mary Sue Hubbard, I remember asking about LRH's wife. I kind of very naively, when I joined the Sea Org, asked about Ron Hubbard's family, and I said, oh yeah, his wife's like, oh, we're not supposed to talk about that. We're not, zip, don't talk about LRH's wife. But now I know why. I didn't know why when I was there.
All but one of his children and grandchildren are out of Scientology. Diana's the only one who's in, and her daughter's out.
Oh yeah. I heard, and I've seen Diana. At middle management. Long hair down to her butt, basically, and all red. But yeah,
I've never seen her before. I've never met her. I've never seen her.
Yeah, I was only intrigued because of the red hair, and somebody pointed that's LRH's daughter, but she's not getting any kind of they're not putting her on it. She's just there. I think.
Yeah. And to me, and again, I feel like if I knew her, I don't know. I don't want to give myself more credit, but to me, it is such a point of cognitive dissonance for those who are at international management and know David Miscavige and know Diana Hubbard, that his own freaking daughter is not one of the senior managers of Scientology.
Exactly. What does that tell you?
It's insane.
It's insane. Yeah. It's absolutely insane.
I don't know how the other senior level managers sort of rationalize it. Now you and I know that on some level you're not trying to rationalize it. It just is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
But it's like Miscavige has managed to convince all these people that he and he alone not the man's daughter, but
Yeah,
Miscavige, and Miscavige alone was selected to take over this whole organization. It's like, it on its face, it's impossible to believe, and he's convinced everybody it's true.
exactly. Well, even Ronnie, his own dad, like Ronnie Miscavige, like I remember, like when they would come down sometimes to pack, like gold used to come down sometimes to pack, and I remember we were so envious, like, oh my god, they're golden era productions, they're angels coming from int whatever, but they were like all prisoners coming. Anyway, Ronnie Miscavige was in a uniform that was I didn't even know that was Ronnie Miscavige, by the way.
Ron Senior or Ron Junior?
Sorry, Ron Senior,
Okay.
Miscavige's dad.
Okay.
But he was in a uniform that was a uniform of like those practical uniforms. You know what I mean? Like he had a post. I don't know what kind of post he had actually.
Almost like an estates uniform, almost.
Yes, he had an estates uniform. I remember being also shocked at that. That wow, that's Yobi's dad. Wow, I thought he would be like with bars and everything. But
yeah. And even Miscavige, I have incorrectly stated in the past that every single member of his family has left Scientology, but his sisters are actually still in. But, his dad left, his brother left, his sister-in-law left, his niece left. But then even his sister was arrested for drugs here in Clearwater.
I know, it's crazy. I remember when Jenna left. I've seen Jenna also in middle management. I've done one metering drill with Jenna actually in the course. And when Jenna, like I knew, and I also knew Dallas because Dallas was in FLO, and I think he was in comm department because he was wearing the yellow. So it was really, I didn't know that they were married. So when I saw that they were out and married, I was like, oh my God, I knew these two people are like together. I was like, but I was stunned. I was like, oh my God. Like when I saw Jenna out, I was like, this thing is going to fall apart because the niece is out. But it's not like that. It's bigger than that. It's more manipulative than that.
Yeah. It's funny that in so many ways it is falling apart, and yet they managed to make it look like it's not, but it totally is.
It's falling apart. Really? So these orgs are empty, right? These class ideal orgs.
The New York org cannot pay its electric bill.
Wow. Oh my God.
In Manhattan or whatever, is that Central Park, Manhattan? I don't even know.
Yes.
Some of the most expensive real estate and one of the most prime locations you could possibly have, the amount of foot traffic walking by that building.
Yes, it's the Upper East Side, I think.
Yeah. If the ideal org strategy was going to result in more people joining Scientology, the ground zero of that evidence would be right there in New York City, and that org can't even pay its electric bill.
That is crazy. And do they still do those events? And do they still like show that they are like going up? Or do they still do that? With all of this?
said that during the COVID lockdowns, the number of people getting into Scientology like went up 63x.
Okay.
The orgs were closed.
Oh wow! But people believe it though. Like people like Coco and Fareed and all these people believe this. How is this possible? It's funny because even us that was in it are stunned, let alone like a regular person that is not in it. Because once you're out and you have a healthy mind and you can think again, and when you look back in, oh my God, it's mind-boggling. And this is not the only cult. Do you think this is the only cult that is so organized in such a gaslighting?
Oh.
Because they have mental techniques. They use MK Ultra techniques, don't they? Like NLP and
yeah. I do believe, just anecdotally and from other academics who've commented on this, that Scientology has a uniquely effective method of self-brainwashing. And that's a loaded term, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
a very uniquely effective method of self-brainwashing. But I'll tell you, it's also a bit of a trap to think that there's something super, super unique about the type of scam that Scientology is. Have you ever read Steve Hassan's book, Combating Cult Mind Control?
No.
So Steve Hassan is a guy who was recruited into the Moonies when he was in college.
Was he in Aftermath?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I saw somebody talking Aftermath about the Moonies.
Yes. And he rose up to, I don't know what all the ranks are in the Moonies, but he was a very high level respected member of the Moonies. And his book, he's now he's now one of the leading cult experts and on cult recovery and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And his book explaining how someone like him was not only recruited into the Moonies and then, left college, left his life, dedicated his whole life to the Moonies. Made and the details in his book on how their recruitment methods, their methods of controlling behavior, information, thought, and emotions. I didn't realize how devastating it would be to me to come to the realization that Scientology was not necessarily unique bullshit. It was garden variety bullshit. It is a tale as old as time. And that might seem to contradict with what I said, that the method of getting members to brainwash themselves, I think, is a little stronger in Scientology than in other groups. But overall, it's garden variety bullshit.
Yes, and I remember you said that before in one of your other podcasts, and I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, that's true, because the method of the cults all have the same formula, right? There's a formula that all cults follow, and how they bring in their members and how they keep them there, and gaslight them. That's the same. So yeah, that's garden variety. You're right. That's exactly it follows all those formulas, and that's why I was like, because I had a Mormon friend, or ex-Mormon friend, when I lived in Sweden. We connected on the fact that she was in the Mormon cult, I was in Scientology. So when we were exchanging our experiences, there was a lot of overlap. So yeah, there was the way she thought about things, and if she self-brainwashed, if she was critical of something in their scriptures, she would make sure that she would correct herself, put her ethics back on, like it was exactly what we did with doing the liability condition. Deliver an effective blow to the enemy of the group.
One has been pretending to be a part of despite personal
danger. Yeah.
Okay, I have to tell you a really funny anecdote. So, where I live in Clearwater, Florida, there's a lot of Baptists, and very big Baptist church here in Clearwater, and they see Scientology as satanic, and they very much dislike Scientology and are willing to publicly speak about it. They had one of the leaders of the biggest local Calvary Baptist church held a meeting of like 200 Baptist ministers and asked me and Mike Rinder to come. It was all about Scientology. It was all about how they were going to get the message out to their parishioners about the satanic nature of Scientology. And they asked Mike and I to come and help answer questions about Scientology. And so we went. And as I was sitting there, as we're sitting there in the back of the meeting hall, and the pastor is up there with his Bible, and he's flipping through and he's quoting, chapter, verse, section. This was the first time it dawned on me. I was like, oh, we treat LRH policy exactly like these guys treat the Bible.
Oh, exactly. Oh my God. Exactly. This is the Bible. Where's the reference? Show me the data. Oh my
it
God.
says right here in chapter verse. I was like, we did worship L. Ron Hubbard. Oh no.
Yes, exactly. We worshipped him, and every time we wanted to say something, it was verbal text. So you had to grab that HCOPL, open it up, and here, this is where it says this, But what I'm thinking, did they because it doesn't help that Satan is very close to the word Satan.
That's what everyone says. And I'm like, it's just a coincidence. And they're like, but is it? And then it gets even better. They had a whole, these guys did a whole research pack, a whole compilation on things L. Ron Hubbard said against religion and against, all the world's major religions.
Medicine
and
implants.
There's this, oh yeah, exactly. He had all that.
Yeah.
And in the original version of OT8, L. Ron Hubbard says that he is his reincarnation this lifetime as L. Ron Hubbard fulfills the biblical prophecy of the Antichrist.
Yeah, the Messiah. Hymns
Well,
of Asia.
the Antichrist.
Oh, okay.
Oh no,
okay,
Hymn of Asia, Maitreya, that's different.
Different. Okay.
That's him being Buddha. That's him having been Buddha.
He was a Buddha too, right?
Now remember, when he says it fulfills the biblical prophecy of the Antichrist, what he means, like he's basically saying that the Bible is reversed, and that in the Bible they call the Antichrist is a bad figure, but in reality it's a good figure. Anyway,
Oh my
And at
God.
one point I tried to explain, I was like, "What? But you have to understand the context of this. He's saying it fulfills the prophecy of the Antichrist, but Scientologists don't believe in God, the devil, or Jesus, or the Antichrist. So you have to understand what he means when he says that." And they go, "That's exactly what the Antichrist would say." And I
Oh
go,
my
"Oh,
God.
David. Oh, come
Oh
on."
my God, that is crazy.
Meaning the
Because
Antichrist would say that he doesn't believe in Christ. And I'm like, "Okay, fine. You got me."
fine, you got me. But I think also somewhere, I think Nostradamus said that Antichrist would have a golden hair and it would come up in the Western world. Anyway, oh my God, the
No,
amount
you're
of
talking about the Hymn of
narcissism.
Asia stuff, right?
Is it was that in Hymn of Asia?
Hymn of
I'm
Asia
probably
is I am
confusing.
Maitreya. I am the reincarnation of Buddha, and the prophecy of the
And the
golden
gold.
haired will
Oh,
rise in the
okay.
west.
Yeah,
And
okay. Yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah, I remember. Oh my God,
and it's
that was
like,
a whole
geez,
nother story.
you're Maitreya and the Antichrist. Like, this is amazing.
This is a dichotomy. What a dichotomy, It's like the emptiness of the good and evil. But the amount of narcissism is mind-boggling. Like you're both. You're the Buddha, you're the Antichrist. You are, oh my God. This is so, it's very interesting. Psychologically, somebody should study these minds,
What did you think? And also, it's interesting because you joined. How old were you when you joined? Well, got into Scientology.
1920.
Okay, and you pretty much joined the Sea Org essentially right away.
Right away.
Okay,
I was never a public Scientologist. So
that's incredible.
yeah.
At what point did you find out about this whole L. Ron Hubbard claimed he was the reincarnated Buddha?
At the Hymns of Asia event at PAC. So like just because it was a huge event, and every good Sea Org member should have bought the whole Hymns of Asia pack and read the poems and everything. And am I Maitreya? If you see me there, I will live forever. And all, like I even remember the poem. So I'm here to guide you. And it was well done. So that's where I found out. I was like, oh my God, he's the Buddha, because that's he based a lot of Buddha scriptures, like Buddhist philosophy, on his work, like reincarnation and all of that. And I didn't think much of it. I thought it was I was so brainwashed. It was in the middle of my peak of my brainwashing in Scientology. I actually thought I believed it. I was like, yeah, wow. Our guy is the Buddha,
Were you excited that our guy had some additional street cred?
Yes, he had some additional. Yeah, exactly. I was like, wow, he's everything. He's everything. Oh,
I'm like, everyone likes the Buddha. This is awesome.
I wanted to find it online. None of these exist online. They're tightly kept, just for the hell of it. But yeah, but then now looking at it, I was like, wow, the level of narcissism and sociopathy that can go in somebody's mind to be convinced that their Buddha and God is just something else. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially what every Scientologist is trying to achieve. They believe they are essentially a godlike
Exactly.
natively powerful being, and
I
they
never thought.
believe L. Ron Hubbard walked that path.
Yeah, and all the OTs. I remember seeing OT8s. They weren't anything special, and always being very, very not disappointed, but like wondering. Then what if you're OT? Then why are you not able to find this thing that you lost? Aren't you, cause over matter, space, time, form, and life? So, but you don't. I question that now. I wasn't questioning it before, and that's what's so intriguing to me about the mind, that when you are in that state, you don't question anything, and that could go from as little as being in a relationship with somebody that's constantly gaslighting you, to a huge organization like Scientology and the sorts. So you just stop questioning. Your mind shuts down, and you question your reality left and right. You don't think anymore. You think that your captor is in your head and looking at your thoughts. You literally think like that. It's yeah, it's I'm kind of lost for words of how
Yeah.
this could even be. Do you think though that this will eventually tumble coming down, or do you think there's always going to be somebody that's going to buy this and it's going to be a perpetual machine that's going to always be there?
I feel like the lower levels of Scientology are self-helpy enough that you will always be able to find someone willing to buy, willing to fall for it. I mean, just look at all the scams out there that trap people.
True. Self-help is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So yes.
Yeah. Now, if Scientology loses its tax-exempt status, which I do believe it eventually will.
Okay, that's big.
And that opens it up to an avalanche of lawsuits where the courts are not prohibited from interpreting what certain policies mean. I do think it's possible to bankrupt Scientology. But even then, I don't know if it's possible for them to reorganize and continue to exist in some form. I don't think they ever go away completely.
Right. And who would be replacing Miscavige eventually? Does he have a successor? I think
he does.
I mean, he doesn't. He doesn't
just
care.
Like L. Ron Hubbard. There never was a successor.
There isn't, and I don't think he cares. Like when I die, I don't give a shit. Like, you know, because
that's right.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. It's I think it will always, these cults, because of the human, how we are, I think these cults will always be around. I think at some form or another, they might diminish in power a little bit, but I think these things will always be around. They're always going to be these offshoot little cults and little religions and, you know, spiritual places that, you know, attracts a certain type of people. I was one of those people. I was primed. I was susceptible to be in a cult, you know, from just by virtue of my interest in spirituality and crazy stuff. But I have to admit, I bought it. Some people would not have, like maybe my siblings to this day, like they can't imagine that I even done this. So some people want to be part of something, want to be part of a group, a bigger thing. And
yeah. I mean, hell, just look at all the people who've left Scientology but still believe in the, you know, the tech, and L. Ron Hubbard was great, and L. Ron Hubbard's coming back, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. If you're going to leave, leave.
I was still clearing my misunderstood words there, and for like 3 years after I left, it was slowing me down.
I certainly will look up the definitions of words that I don't understand. I think that's one of the more helpful things that they
right.
do.
Yeah, that's actually true. But not make sentences and, you know, spot checking.
Oh, yeah. I only look up the one definition that applies, not all of them, not the derivation, not the idioms.
Oh my God, the derivations and the idioms. Oh my God. Do you have a clay table? I'm just joking. Imagine if you had a clay table.
That's one of the things of Scientology that I thought was never helpful at any time in any circumstance ever. Demo kits, clay demos, bullshit. Never liked it.
Exactly. Well, I did the M1. I don't know if you did the M1. I did the M1.
Yeah.
And I had to clear like whole track misunderstood words from like, you know, and my twin started to clear whole track words. So he was like using, it was
making up fake words from the whole track.
Yeah.
How would you clear them?
We couldn't. So there is a policy that if it's a whole track word from another planet, you can't clear it. You just have to assume you have to clear it. But we used to go to the LA Public Library, and we would log online to go to the internet. That was my first exposure to the internet and email and messengers. I didn't know these things existed there. And I was like, because we were in a cult, you know, I didn't. So just go by virtue of doing method one. Because of doing method one, I was exposed a little bit to the internet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, they would let you guys hike all the way to the LA Public Library to find a dictionary big enough to find the right definition for the word you were trying to clear?
The reason for that was because I had Farsi words. I had MUs from Farsi language. And there were no dictionaries. I had no Farsi dictionary, nothing. So the only way to find out was to go online and ask other Iranians and go online on a chat. We logged into this chat. I don't know what chat it was. It was some kind of HTML chat of, you know, and I would log into that and I would ask my misunderstood words of ththese Iranians in the chat. And they were like, why are you asking? What?
Don't ask questions. We know what we're doing.
I know. I just need to know what this word is.
That's incredible. Well, hey, this has been a lot of fun. Let me show everyone one more time your website. Well, what's the actual, just Mersede.photo? Is that the actual URL?
Yep. Mersede, that photo with an S though, not with a C. So
And I actually do have links to the website in the description down below, and you can find Mersede on Instagram right here. Feel free to follow her there.
Yep.
And if you ever want to do a chat about anything, just let me know. Happy to do it.
Totally. This was really fun. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share my story finally after 21 years. So, and I really, really appreciate your channel and all you're doing. Thanks for having me. Really.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Thanks for hanging out with us this evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Ciao.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe